He has a BA, a bachelor's degree in environmental studies, and a master's in energy regulation, as well as a law degree from Vermont Law School in the United States. He is the founder of Tunbridge Solar, a Vermont-based solar development company. Aaron is passionate about renewable energy, electric vehicles, and technologies and policies which can reduce carbon emissions and contribute to a sustainable world. Aaron, thank you for joining us this evening and presenting on food security and climate change.
Good evening, and thank you, Sherry, for the warm welcome. This presentation has three parts. First, we'll have a brief look at the UN's Sustainable Development Goals. Then we'll go to food security, and finally, climate change's effects on food security. The Sustainable Development Goals are 17 interlinked goals designed to be a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity for people and the planet. They were established by the UN General Assembly in 2015 and are intended to be achieved by 2030. Here is a closer look at the goals, as I know it can be a little hard to read them on the previous slide. A number of the goals have to do with the well-being of humanity and the well-being of the environment. You'll notice that zero hunger is the second goal, and climate action is goal number 13. And then additionally, many of the goals have to do with the environment as well, like life below water, life on land, clean water, and sanitation. A couple of my observations about the goals are that they're really interconnected. So the interconnectedness of each goal with other goals, for example, goal number 1, which is no poverty, affects zero hunger. Goal number 2, which impacts good health and well-being. Goal number 3, and in turn, health affects poverty, as good health is a prerequisite to productivity. Secondly, a second observation I propose that the UN development goals are highly consistent with the goals of many of the religions around the world, which broadly speaking are to advance the spiritual and physical well-being of humanity. Now we'll look more closely at the goal zero hunger and food insecurity. The number of people experiencing hunger in the world after decades of steady decline is on the rise in recent years, with between 702 and 828 million people facing hunger last year. The world is not on track to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal of zero hunger by 2030. According to the UN, if current trends continue, the number of people affected by hunger would surpass 840 million by 2030. So what is food insecurity? According to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, a person is food insecure when they lack regular access to enough safe and nutritious food for normal growth and development in an active and healthy life. This may be due to unavailability of food and/or lack of resources to obtain food. Food insecurity can be experienced at different levels of severity, ranging from mild to moderate to severe, as the chart shows. Mild includes worrying about the ability to obtain food. Moderate includes compromising on quality and variety, reducing quantities, and skipping meals. And when somebody is severely food insecure, they have run out of food and gone a day or more without eating. In other words, they have most likely experienced hunger. This is a map of the percentage of the population in each country experiencing moderate or severe food insecurity. The prevalence of food insecurity is highest in sub-Saharan Africa, while the majority of food insecure people live in Asia. In 2021, hunger affected 278 million people in Africa, 425 million in Asia, and 56.5 million in Latin America and the Caribbean. Food insecurity is a serious problem in Canada too. In 2021, 5.8 million people, including 1.4 million children, lived in food insecure households in Canada. This is up from previous years. Quebec has the lowest level of food insecurity in Canada, which the University of Toronto attributes to its policies and programs. People living in Quebec were less than half as likely, 2.8% versus 6.3%, as those in Alberta to experience severe food insecurity. A new report using data from 2019 to 2021 shows that food insecurity persists in Ontario. Over those years in Ontario, 16% of all Ontario households were food insecure, which is approximately 2.3 million residents. 1 in 5 Ontario children lived in food insecure households, approximately 500,000. 4.6% of all Ontario households had severe food insecurity, missed meals, reduced food intake, days without eating due to lack of money. It's also important to note that in Ontario, nearly half of food insecure households had people in the workforce. So you can be working and still be food insecure. And 67% of Ontario households who rely on Ontario Works and or the Ontario Disability Support Program, ODSP, as their main source of income were food insecure, which indicates that these programs are not sufficiently meeting the needs of those they serve. In Canada, food insecurity is most strongly associated with increased healthcare spending, poor health outcomes, and premature death, according to the University of Toronto. Here you can see some specific health impacts that have been found to be associated with food insecurity. We turn now to climate change, which I should note is not the only cause of food insecurity, as war and energy prices also have an impact. Nevertheless, the following slides feature findings directly from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's Special Report on Climate Change and Land. According to the special report, climate change, including increases in frequency and intensity of extremes, have reduced food and water security, hindering efforts to meet sustainable development goals. High confidence, and the confidence at the end is just an indication that it's not speculative, that this is actually high confidence according to the scientists who authored the report. While it's true that over the past 50 years, overall agricultural productivity has increased, climate change has slowed this growth globally. Medium confidence. That was another of their findings. Observed climate change is already affecting food security through increased temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, and greater frequency of some extreme events. High confidence. The images below depict increasing temperatures, changing precipitation patterns, including drought in California and floods in British Columbia. According to the special report, warming compounded by drying has caused large negative effects on yields in part of the Mediterranean. Based on indigenous and local knowledge, climate change is affecting food security in drylands, particularly those in Africa, and high mountain ranges in Asia and South America. Increasing weather and climate extreme events have exposed millions of people to acute food insecurity. This is an image from Haiti, where Hurricane Irma, a Category 5 hurricane, damaged crops, destroyed key infrastructure, and left thousands struggling for adequate shelter. The vulnerability of pastoral systems to climate change is very high confidence. Pastoralism is practiced in more than 75% of countries by between 200 and 500 million people, including nomadic communities, herders, and people making a living by a mix of agriculture and pastoralism. According to the United Nations Special Reporter on the Right to Food, Halal Alver, women account for 70% of the world's hungry and disproportionately affected by malnutrition, yet they are responsible for more than half of global food production. So you can see here this finding that food security and climate change have strong gender and equity dimensions, high confidence. So globally and in every region, the prevalence of food insecurity is higher among women than men. This includes Canada, where the household type most likely to be experiencing food insecurity is the female lone parent household, with 38% female lone parent households experiencing food insecurity, according to the University of Toronto. Ocean warming and ocean acidification have adversely affected food production from shellfish, aquaculture, and fisheries in some oceanic regions, high confidence. CO2 is projected to lower nutritional quality of food staples, high confidence. For example, wheat grown at 560 parts per million of carbon dioxide has 6 to 13% less protein, 4 to 7% less zinc, and 5 to 8% less iron. Distributions of pests and diseases will change, affecting production negatively in many regions, high confidence. Given increasing extreme events and interconnectedness, risks of food system disruptions are growing, high confidence. Food security will be increasingly affected by projected future climate change, high confidence. Global crop and economic models project a 1 to 29% cereal price increase in 2050 due to climate change, which would impact consumers globally through higher food prices. Regional effects will vary, high confidence. Low-income consumers are particularly at risk, with models projecting increases of 1 to 183 million additional people at risk of hunger compared to a no climate change scenario. High confidence. The special report offers at least one suggestion for addressing climate change and food insecurity. Consumption of healthy and sustainable diets presents major opportunities for reducing greenhouse gas emissions from food systems and improving health outcomes, high confidence. About 25% of the world's greenhouse gas emissions are from the food system, including transportation, land use, distribution, the entire food systems. So now we're on to the discussion, and the question for today's discussion is, what ideas do we have that could help address climate change, food insecurity, and gender inequality?